Hi everyone! I know it's been a little bit. Let's do an update on PyKiln. For those of you who are new, PyKiln is a low-cost, open-source, web-based Kiln controller that runs on a Raspberry Pi. It's easy to create, modify, and share firing schedules. It's got email notifications when your firing is done, all of which can be controlled through a web interface on your phone or computer. The primary focus of this project is safety. PyKiln is constantly monitoring the electricity usage and will turn itself off if it detects a failed relay. Okay, now that you're primed, I've got some big news. Remember how I said PyKiln runs on a Raspberry Pi? I lied. I'm in the process of moving the project over to an ESP32 running Micropython. The ESP32 is a $7 microcontroller that connects to Wi-Fi, and it's way cheaper than Raspberry Pi. The nice thing about it is that I originally programmed PiKiln in Python using Vue and a Flask server, so it's actually been really easy to move things over to the ESP32 since it's running Python as well, and the web server that I'm using is the Pico web library, which is very similar to Flask. The biggest change is I moved the front end to be hosted on GitHub Pages to reduce the number of web requests to the ESP32. The microcontroller only has 4 megabytes of space, and I'd lose half of that in order to host all the images and JavaScript and HTML for people's browsers. The ESP32 is only responding to API calls and stores data for the settings and firing schedules on its flash storage. I know what you're thinking. If this project no longer uses a Raspberry Pi, then it doesn't make sense to include Pi in the name. Well, I've got an easy fix for that. The project is still written in Python, so let's just swap the I in Pi with a Y. Boom, done. From now on, this project is called PyKiln. I've created a new GitHub repo for it, and we'll put up a message on the old repo letting people know that it's got a new home. In the last video, I mentioned I ordered some PCBs. Well, I got them, and I learned a lot. But since I've switched to a new device powering PyKiln, I had to redesign it. Using the ESP32 has drastically simplified the board. I got rid of almost all the transistors since the GPIO pins of the ESP32 can put out much more power than a Raspberry Pi. The ESP32 also has analog to digital inputs built in. On the Raspberry Pi, I had to include an additional chip in order to measure analog signals. And one nice thing I've improved upon is making it easier to wire up relays. In the new design, I have a Ethernet cable breakout to simplify wiring. This also allows you to mount the ESP32 way away from the Kiln. I know this is a step back in terms of having a usable Kiln controller, but in the long run will result in an incredibly affordable and powerful Kiln controller. I aim to make PyKiln the best Kiln controller out there. I feel that most Kiln controllers haven't kept up with the times. A big part of what I'm doing is leveraging new technology like Internet of Things, serverless systems, and mobile devices to bring Kilns into the 21st century. If you like what I'm doing, give this video a thumbs up and subscribe for more. I can't wait to see where this project takes us. I want to hear from you. What do you think about switching to the ESP32? Is there anything I can do to make this project better? When I have a working build, I'd love to get some feedback and beta testers. I have a forum in the description, and if you're interested in getting early access to builds, please fill it out. Thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time.